Good evening. It's Tuesday, December 17th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Lawmakers, are you listening? San Diegans right now joining with others nationwide to make their voices heard as the full House prepares to take its historic vote on impeachment. KPBS's Matt Hoffman is along the 5 in Del Mar at one of the many demonstrations taking place. Matt.
Yeah, Maya, we are right here at Del Mar Heights Road. It's right in between the city of San Diego and the city of Del Mar. Behind me is what's left of people who are out here rallying earlier this afternoon in support of impeaching President Trump. They're staggering across overpasses. I want to show you their target audience. Look at all these cars that are coming over here. That's who they're trying to get. They have signs reading impeach and remove. I want to show you what drivers have been seeing all afternoon along the 5. There it is. This is what drivers are seeing, impeach and remove. Caltrans says 230,000 vehicles travel this area of the 5 freeway every day. Drivers going northbound will see these signs at multiple overpasses, including Palomar Airport Road, Poinsettia, and La Costa exits. It was organized by the groups Indivisible, 49, and Move On. This is all ahead of tomorrow's expected full House historic impeachment vote. Congress is voting on 2 articles of impeachment tomorrow, alleging the president abused the power of his office and obstructed Congress.
The message we're trying to send that it's not okay to hold our Constitution to ransom, that, you know, there should be checks and balances and no one is above the law, and that includes the president. So we're trying to tell everybody, we're trying to make them aware of the historic vote that's going down tomorrow on Capitol Hill, and we're all here supporting one another in the hope that we will make a difference.
All right, now let's take a look at how some of San Diego County's congressional delegation is voting tomorrow. All of the county's 4 Democrats, Mike Levin, Susan Davis, Scott Peters, and Juan Vargas, say they will vote for both articles of impeachment. Now, Republican Duncan Hunter opposes impeachment, but after his guilty plea earlier this year on campaign finance charges, the House Ethics Committee is asking Hunter not to vote anymore. But a spokesman for Hunter says he's consulting with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy about voting. And now, as we come back out here live, you can see lots of cars coming down here. Actually, everyone who's out here rallying for impeachment, they actually just left. This was going from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Now, lots of people out here honking their horns in support, but we saw a lot of people who were unhappy driving by, shouting out Trump 2020, doing some hand gestures that I really can't do here on live TV. But overall, really mixed reactions, maybe more people honking. I want to say, though, the chairman of the San Diego County Republican Party, he says that Democrats are blinded by their hate for President Trump during this whole impeachment vote. And this is all coming ahead of tomorrow's big historic vote in the full House. Here, right in between the city of San Diego and Del Mar, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks for that report, Matt. And an angry President Trump sounded off in a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi today, calling the impeachment process, quote, meritless, and saying he did nothing wrong. More now from Caitlin Collins in Washington, D.C.
To impeach the President of the United States for that is a disgrace, and it's a mark in our country.
On the eve of a House vote to impeach him, President Trump fired off a missive to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, accusing her of violating her oath of office and cheapening the importance of the very ugly word impeachment. Writing in a 6-page letter that read like his Twitter feed, the president claimed, "You are declaring open war on American democracy." The president accusing Pelosi of offending Americans of faith by saying she prays for him. Quote, when you know this statement is not true, unless it is meant in a negative sense.
I still pray for the president.
In his crusade against the 2 articles of impeachment printed on White House letterhead, the president claimed more due process was afforded to those accused in the Salem witch trials. The president ending his letter by telling Pelosi that the American people will not soon forgive your perversion of justice and abuse of power. As House Democrats head toward the impeachment vote, the president told reporters today he hasn't been paying attention, but made no mention of his scathing letter.
I'm not watching. I've not seen it. Look, it's a hoax. The whole impeachment thing is a hoax.
And he made clear he takes no responsibility for potentially being the 3rd president in U.S. history to be impeached.
No, I don't take any, zero, to put it mildly. They took a perfect phone call that I had with the president of Ukraine, an absolutely perfect call. You know it, they all know it. Nothing was said wrong in that call.
And that was Caitlin Collins reporting. Looking ahead to tomorrow, KPBS will have live coverage of the House impeachment vote. It's scheduled to start at 6 a.m. Pacific time, and you can watch, listen, and stream live on all of our platforms. For the first time in more than 2 decades, Congress has approved funding for gun violence research. There will be a $25 million allocated for it. That's included in a massive spending bill on Capitol Hill. Half of the money will go to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the other half will go to the National Institutes of Health. This comes as the nation continues to grapple with the effects of frequent mass shootings. The funding is part of the $1.4 trillion spending deal in the House. Pope Francis issued a declaration to lift Vatican secrecy rules for sex abuse cases. The Vatican made the announcement today on Pope Francis's 83rd birthday. The move will allow the Catholic Church to provide documents related to sex abuse cases to authorities. This is already common in many countries, but it's not yet universal practice. Victims will also be able to stay in the loop about the outcome of their cases at the Vatican. The declaration leaves in place privacy rules around reporting sex abuse. 10 years and $741 million later, officials from both sides of the border celebrated the rebuilding of the San Ysidro Port of Entry. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler was at the border this morning as the ribbon was cut at the busiest border crossing in the Western Hemisphere.
It took 10 years and persistent bipartisan support in Congress, but work at the San Ysidro Port of Entry is finally done. The improvements include 62 northbound inspection lanes and a highway realignment that dramatically expands the number of cars that could head southbound. That should spare San Ysidro from punishing backups. The project included a new transit center and the rehabilitation of the historic Custom House. On Tuesday morning, officials from San Diego and Tijuana marked the finished project. It was built while 70,000 vehicles and 20,000 people continued to cross the border every day. Newly installed U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, Christopher Landau, spoke about the importance of the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico, now exemplified by the new border facility.
These 100,000 crossings a day are more than a statistic. They represent the personal stories of Mexicans and Americans tied to both countries through business, culture, and family. They share hopes and dreams and hard work to build a better future.
After the ceremony, Congressman Juan Vargas told KPBS that while a new crossing will bring the two countries even closer, he looks forward to a day where these facilities will become obsolete.
The truth of the matter is I dream of a time when we don't need these borders at all. People will just cross because there won't be any drug usage and there won't be poverty, so people won't have to leave. Instead, they'll just come to vacation, they'll come to have a good time, they'll come to spend money, and we'll do the same in Mexico. I look forward to that day.
1/8 of all travelers who enter the U.S. do so at the San Ysidro Port of Entry. The San Diego Association of Governments projects that vehicle traffic at the border will increase 87% by the year 2030. In San Ysidro, Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Many students rely on public transportation to get to school every day. It takes both time and money to get there. And as KPBS education reporter Joe Hong shows us, a move is being made to make the bus pass program free for all.
Diana Frias is a junior at Hoover High in San Diego. Every morning, she wakes up at 5:20 and catches the 6:45 bus to school. Frias says she wouldn't make it to school without her Youth Opportunity Pass, a discounted bus pass for students under 18.
They allow us to get to school, to internships, and it just overall gives you this sense of independence.
Today, she's accompanied on her bus ride by County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, who serves as board chairman for the Metropolitan Transit System. She's hoping the MTS board will vote to put a half-cent sales tax increase on next year's ballot to fund free opportunity passes for students up to 24 years old. Fletcher said he would support putting the sales tax increase on the ballot.
As a country, we offer this promise of universal K-12 education that's supposed to be free, it's supposed to be equitable. But when you have students who have to pay every single day just in order to be able to get to school, I don't really think we're fulfilling that promise.
The MTS board will vote next spring to put the tax increase on the November ballot. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
A big wet mess in North Park sent residents in one neighborhood scrambling for higher ground. A water main break this morning sent water gushing down several streets near Ray and Capps and Dwight and Myrtle. In all, a 5-block area was flooded. Some residents had to be saved from their homes by members of the River Rescue Team. Several homes were partially flooded. Crews will have to work through tomorrow to replace the 30-inch cast iron pipe. San Diego City Council members today approved reforms that aim to help churches build housing on their parking lots. Churches and other public gathering spaces are required to keep a certain number of parking spots based on their size. The update reduces those parking minimums and streamlines the approval process for housing on religious land. Several faith leaders told the council the new rules would make a real difference.
The whole idea of this is for churches to use their resources to make a difference for our communities. It's churches realizing that there are real issues with affordable housing, and our neighbors and the members of our congregation need something to change. This really enables real change to happen.
The changes were inspired by a group of housing advocates calling themselves YIGBY. That stands for Yes in God's Backyard. The U.S. housing market is coming back to life in time to boost the 2020 economy. Low mortgage rates, a strong labor force, and rising wages factor in. Mortgages fell to 3-year lows in the third quarter, with some people's incomes growing past the prices of their homes. The housing market index, which indicates home builder confidence, has jumped to its highest level in 20 years, suggesting better times are ahead for the housing market. Despite the good news, there are still some challenges. Home builders this year have struggled with a shortage of construction workers. There also aren't enough affordable homes for all the buyers who want them. On this day, more than 100 years ago, two brothers made history. That's when Wilbur and Orville Wright took off on the first powered flight ever. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar shows us how San Diego commemorated the anniversary.
It was December 17, 1903, near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, took their flying machine and powered it into the air. That was the beginning of a new era that led to the modern-day airplane. Today, 116 years later, at the Air and Space Museum here in San Diego, aviation enthusiasts are still celebrating with a replica from that historic flight. And they say there's no better place outside Kitty Hawk to commemorate that day.
Oh gosh, it's incredible. When you take a look at the aviation industry in San Diego, it's like no other place in the country. We're just a huge, huge center for aviation, both historically and in modern day.
The Wright brothers' first flying machine reached a speed of 33 miles per hour. Today, the engine replica sits below a Lockheed A-12, an aircraft that less than 60 years after Kitty Hawk was able to reach speeds of 2,400 miles per hour, or 3 times the speed of sound.
So in that period of time, you can see the progress that aviation had made, based principally upon the country's citizens' love of aviation, love of excitement, and love of adventure, and there it is right there.
The museum curator says powering up the replica engine every year can help inspire the next generation. Derek Ryman is an engineering student from Montana.
It's really interesting seeing how the engine's kind of put together and comparing it to other engines and kind of being able to kind of apply the knowledge I've kind of learned in classes to look at something and kind of analyze it in real life.
It's young people like him who will map out where aviation can take off to next. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
California's legal cannabis industry is lucrative and growing, but it's also hyper-competitive. As part of our series, High Hopes, California's Pot Experiment, KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says some San Diego leaders want to carve out space in the industry for folks with a specific disadvantage.
We're walking into our cultivation rooms. Room 1 would be structured here. This would be room 2, and it's broken down by the pillars.
Chauncey Bullock is showing me around a giant room in an industrial area of south central Los Angeles. It's bare and empty, but she's got plans for a premium cannabis cultivation facility.
You have to create that outdoor environment inside. So how do you do that?
You do it, she says, with equipment to control humidity, temperature, and ventilation. Add that to security improvements, and she's got a long list of expensive renovations to turn this building into a profitable business. She says this industry is not for the weak of heart.
Oh, wow. You know, it's been a roller coaster ride. It took forever, over a year, actually, to get into the space.
Bullock got her cultivation permit through the City of LA's Cannabis Equity Program, which offers expedited permitting to people who meet certain criteria. The state awarded LA $1.8 million as part of an incentive program established by the legislature.
The social equity was set up to help those that were hit hard by the war on drugs, or for those that had a cannabis conviction. I had just happened to have a cannabis conviction from this.
Bullock's conviction was for operating an unlicensed dispensary. She had to pay fines and got 3 years of probation. Now she's trying to do things by the book.
We are trying to use some of this new opportunity through legalized recreational marijuana and some of the revenues that come from that industry to be able to reinvest in communities that have been harmed from the criminalization of marijuana in history.
San Diego City Councilman Chris Ward is working on a cannabis equity program in San Diego, but he hasn't gotten very far. He and other advocates face critics who say these programs are akin to helping convicted drug dealers sell more drugs. Ward says that logic ignores the fact that while whites and blacks use marijuana at roughly equal rates, blacks have been far more likely to be arrested for it. He says now, even though pot is legal, minority communities are still on the losing end.
Right now, the only individuals who are at the front of the line are those who are predominantly white, with access to capital and with access to cash. And so we've got a lot of challenges there just structurally that are necessarily leaving some individuals who want to be competitive business owners as well in a disadvantage.
Well, I know it's late at night, but y'all got to wake up a little bit. How's everybody doing?
Jay Bowser is co-founder and CFO of Paving Great Futures, a nonprofit in Southeast San Diego that teaches job skills and financial literacy. He's giving a pep talk to an evening class of formerly incarcerated young adults.
How y'all doing, man? Let me say it with your chest. You blessed.
Bowser is one of San Diego's biggest advocates for a cannabis equity program. He says the industry wouldn't be what it is today without the innovation and entrepreneurship of communities of color.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. If our communities have been persecuted for the war on drugs for decades, that means we pretty much pioneered it. So how can the industry that our communities pioneered, now that it's legal, we be locked out of it, right?
Right now, San Diego has fewer than 20 legal cannabis shops open for business, and only about a dozen more dispensary permits to offer, thanks to a citywide cap. Competition to enter the legal market is fierce. Bowser says for an equity program to succeed, San Diego has to rethink its regulations.
They definitely have to change the distance. Right now, I believe it's like 1,000 feet from churches and daycare, schools, things of that nature. So maybe you can lower it to 600. You know, that will open up some license. But you can't just you just can't make it easier to get in, and then those same folks that have been getting it, they're just going to kind of sweep it up.
Ward says he's open to changing the city's cannabis regulations, but hasn't seen much political will from the mayor's office or his council colleagues. He plans on continuing the push for a cannabis equity program in the coming year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And coming up tomorrow, we will take a look at how marijuana legalization has impacted our public health system. Overindulging during the festive holiday season isn't just bad for your waistline. It can also be bad for your heart. Meredith Wood explains why there seems to be a rise in those visiting the emergency room with heart problems during this time of year.
Holiday heart syndrome. It sounds like something brought on by missing family and friends this time of year, but it actually has to do with your diet. The holiday season is known for enticing even the strictest eater to indulge. Buffets, festive sugary treats, and endless amounts of alcohol are around every corner, and doctors say that can be trouble for your heart. Holiday heart syndrome was coined back in 1978 to describe the dramatic increase in patients going to the emergency room complaining of irregular heart rhythms during the holidays. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, is a racing or irregular heartbeat. The fluttering feeling often comes with other symptoms like lightheadedness or shortness of breath. Cardiac specialists believe excessive alcohol consumption this time of year can increase the risk of AFib. Add to that salty, fatty foods, holiday stress, and not enough sleep, it can become the perfect storm. But don't feel like you can't enjoy the party atmosphere. Experts say taking simple steps will help you avoid holiday heart syndrome. Be conscious of how much alcohol you're drinking and make sure you stay hydrated. Limit salty snacks, keep up with your exercise and sleep routines. These things will help you enjoy a safe and happy holiday season. For today's Health Minute, I'm Meredith Wood.
Cold and flu season is upon us, and there's some good news and some bad news as well. The bad news is obvious. It's cold and flu season. The good news is you probably won't get hit with both a cold and the flu at the same time. That's according to a new study published in the Journal for the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It analyzed viral test results of more than 44,000 patients in Scotland over 8 years. And researchers found that high amounts of flu correlate with low amounts of rhinovirus, which causes the common cold, and vice versa. That could explain why the cold and flu typically have different seasonal peaks. So while you may get both this season, at least it won't likely be at the same time. And it's cold and it's windy out there, and that will be continuing with some wind advisories and warnings. Meteorologist Regina Miller has our forecast.
Well, dry across the county here. We've got some clouds filtering through, but the winds have been the big story. They'll continue to be the big story as we have high wind warnings in effect until 10 p.m. and advisories. Winds could be gusting in the warning area 60 to 70 mile per hour, and we saw some very gusty winds during the overnight into the morning. So with the Santa Ana winds through today, we're looking at difficult driving due to those crosswinds. That's an elevated fire danger as well, where we're going to see gusts in the advisory areas 40 to 50 miles per hour, but they'll be up to 60 to even 70 miles per hour in the wind warning areas. So that is going to be the coastal slopes and the ridge tops. Tonight in the metro areas, 45 degrees, a partly cloudy sky, and to Borrego Springs, we're at 35 degrees, partly cloudy there. Oceanside's also at 35. And then for Wednesday, those winds start to subside. There is a frontal system coming in, a weak system that's going to bring some rain north of LA. So we're not really expecting anything into our area, but we will see clouds. So more in the way of clouds around for tomorrow. Our temperature in Oceanside is 65, and into San Diego, 65 degrees. Borrego Springs checking in at 62. And as we head into the late weekend, the pattern starts to change. We may see a couple of showers make their way in. That's by Sunday for us that we might see some showers around in the coast. Otherwise, we've got a mostly sunny sky for your Thursday, Friday, mostly sunny and 70 degrees, so it starts to warm up. We've got a mostly cloudy day for tomorrow in inland locations. And on Thursday, mostly sunny and 69, 74, lots of sunshine, nice. It warms up. And in the mountain areas, it's gradually going to warm up into the mid-50s as we go through the start of the weekend, partly sunny on Sunday. Desert locations, mostly sunny for Thursday, 67 degrees, 68 degrees, and mostly sunny for Friday, and it warms up to 70 by Saturday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
It's the most festive time of the year, but it's also the most wasteful. Americans throw away about 25% more trash between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve. But experts say making small, sustainable choices when it comes to gifting and decorating can have a big impact to protect the environment for many holidays to come. Mary Maloney has more.
Despite the cheer, the holiday season takes a toll on the environment. But there are some sustainable ways to simplify and reduce waste.
We need to be aware of our impacts and of the things that we're purchasing, of the things that we're consuming.
Number one, go with eco-friendly gifts. Give items that are long-lasting or can be reused or recycled. How about gift certificates to local museums, concerts, restaurants, or theaters? Or better yet, make your own holiday presents.
And it's pretty affordable because most of the ingredients you can have it at home. For example, doing the natural body scrub, the only things you'll need is olive oil, salt, and coconut oil, and maybe some essential oils.
And most people already have this at home. If you don't have Himalayan salt, you can use regular sugar or regular salt.
Number two, ditch the wrapping paper. Opt for alternatives like scarves, magazines, newspapers, maps, and posters. According to the CDC, if every American family wrapped just 3 presents in reused materials, it would save enough paper to cover 45,000 football fields. And number 3, when it comes to decor, ditch the tinsel and plastic decor. Instead, use natural items like evergreens, berries, flowers, and twigs to make ornaments. Or simply reuse last year's items and avoid the temptation to buy anything new. For Consumer Watch, I'm Mary Maloney.
Tom Cruise returns to the skies in the highly anticipated film Top Gun Maverick, filmed here in San Diego. David Daniel has that and more in today's Hollywood Minute.
Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking. Today's exercise is dogfighting.
2 versus 1? Oh, you've got to be kidding.
Here's your latest look at Top Gun Maverick. Tom Cruise's Pete Mitchell teaches a new generation how to zoom through the sky in the follow-up, which reaches theaters June 26th.
And both looking right here for me.
Kerry Russell joins the Star Wars galaxy for The Rise of Skywalker, opening Friday, and she took her partner, fellow actor Matthew Rhys, to the cast screening.
And that music starts, and you're just like, ah! I looked at him and I said, how bad do you wish it was you instead of me in this movie? And he's like, so bad.
We got ourselves a suspicious package. We better call it in.
Richard Jewell got pretty good reviews, but it fell flat at the box office. How flat? The drama's opening weekend of $4.7 million is the lowest for a film directed by Clint Eastwood since Bronco Billy way back in 1980. Back then, the average movie ticket price was less than $3. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
It's been 30 years since the first episode of The Simpsons aired. Does that make you feel old? It sure makes me feel old. Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire aired December 17th, 1989. The Christmas-themed episode is still one of the show's most popular. With more than 670 episodes, the show broke a record for the most scripted primetime series. The animated series isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's been renewed through 2021. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.